The Bilegut, the newest heavyweight big bad machine in the Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores. They jump, they kick, they whip their tongue out at you, they shoot adhesive, they spit acid, a lot of acid. They're usually accompanied by a small army of Stingspawn that shock and throw themselves at you. And oh yeah, the Apex variant does all of that, but with fire. They can be pretty tough, but with this simple strategy, we'll be able to take down the Bilegut and its Apex variant every single time, while also preserving the sack webbing, which is a key upgrade component for a lot of the new legendary weapons. And not only is this strategy good for taking down the Bilegut, but I use a very similar strategy for taking down Fireclaws and Frostclaws, machines where you also need to preserve the sack webbing to upgrade a lot of your legendary weapons. So once you've been able to master this technique, you shouldn't have any trouble handling some of the more challenging machines in the Forbidden West and the Burning Shores. But before we jump in, if this video helps you, or at least keeps you entertained for just a few minutes, feel free to give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Every like, comment, and subscribe helps me continue doing what I love, playing video games and making videos about it. How awesome is that? Alright, let's jump in. First, let's outline our overall strategy and talk about the weapons we're going to need. After that, I'll take you through a play-by-play where we can put all the pieces together and see the strategy in action. What we want to do first is take out the Stingspawn and remove the egg launchers from the Bilegut so he won't be able to produce any more. The Stingspawn are pretty annoying and in numbers can do some real damage, but mostly they're just a distraction, so we'll want to get rid of them first. To do that, the first thing we're going to want to do is move in and tie down the Bilegut. I'll be using my ropecaster, the tie that binds legendary ropecaster, but the elite ropecaster works really well here too if you don't have the legendary one yet. Once the Bilegut is tied down, we'll have 90 seconds to run around and aggro all the surrounding Stingspawn. Aggroing them all and letting them group up is going to make it a lot easier to hit them and take them all out. Stingspawn are very weak to shock. And not only will the shock damage blow them up, but it'll cause a chain reaction that will blow up any surrounding Stingspawn once they're all bunched together. So we're going to need a shock weapon. I'll be using my Ancestors Return Shredder Gauntlet loaded with 15% shock coils. But if you're not a fan of Shredder Gauntlets, a Shock Warrior Bow like the new legendary Eye of the Storm or the Firestorm Warrior Bow work really well here too. I will say though, a Shredder Gauntlet works really well because it'll hit any Stingspawn in the path of the Shredder both on its way to the target and on its way back, making it even easier to take out the whole group. Once we've taken care of the Stingspawn, we're going to come back for the Bilegut and remove the egg launchers that are on his left and right sides. That way he won't be able to produce any more of them. Now I'll be using my Tears of the Land God legendary Hunter Bow loaded up with tear damage coils to quickly remove the egg launchers. But the main goal here is just to remove or destroy the egg launchers as fast as possible. Now, once we start damaging the Bilegut, that tie down state is going to deteriorate pretty quickly. So we're going to want to tie him down again. Keeping the Bilegut tied down is going to limit his attacks and his ability to jump around. And once he's tied down again, we can focus on damage. Now for maximum damage, we'll want to freeze him, which is going to give us a damage multiplier. For this, I'll be using my Sunscourge Hunter Bow loaded with frost coils. One thing to note, this does also work on the Apex variant, even though they're not weak to frost. It might take a little bit longer, but you can still freeze them. Now this part can also be a bit tricky. We want to be careful to freeze the machine but not damage it, so we're not deteriorating the tie down state. To do that, we need to aim for an armor plate. Hitting an armor plate will ensure that we can still build up the freeze elemental status while doing minimal damage to the machine. And once we have the machine frozen and tied down, then we can focus on maximum damage. For maximum damage, I'll be using my upgraded Blastforge Bolt Blaster with the Sustained Burst weapon technique. I'll also be triggering my Valor Surge Range Master. And staying behind the Bilegut and aiming for this cluster of coils on his back will ensure that I'm not damaging the sack webbing. And that's it. That's our strategy. We'll rinse and repeat a couple of times until the Bilegut is destroyed. Okay, so let's recap and then we'll put it into action. Step 1, tie down the Bilegut. Step 2, aggro the Stingspawn and take them out. Step 3, remove the egg launchers. Step 4, tie the Bilegut down again. Step 5, freeze him. Step 6, activate your Valor Surge. Step 7, focus on maximum damage. And then step 8, repeat steps 4 through 7 until he's dead. Now let's put all these steps together and see it in action. Here I am at the Bilegut site, a little bit northeast-ish of Fleet's End. This is probably my preferred Bilegut site, if there is such a thing. Just because you can usually get them one-on-one. When I come in here, I typically like to see where he's at. Sometimes he'll be on the far side and you'll have to kind of sneak around. But I definitely like to come in and tag all the parts first. Just makes it easier to kind of aim. Then I'll switch to my rope caster. Again, the first thing I'm trying to do here is tie him down. Sometimes you can hide in the grass too, and he'll come right up next to you, and that way you can get a good single rope in before he knows you're even there, and that makes it really easy. When he does jump around a lot, those ropes will break, so sometimes this part is a little bit difficult. And you get smacked around a little bit, but once I've got him tied down, the next thing I'm trying to do is aggro all the Stingspawn and just get them all coming after me. I take some hits, but, with the Stingspawn, you can kind of just ignore them. Trying to get as many to chase after me as possible. Makes it a lot easier to aim when they're all grouped up. Now, one thing to note too here is, you want to be careful not to go too close to the right of where I'm at, because there are clamor jaws over there and they'll come over. You kind of want to stay away from that side. And the Shredder Gauntlet makes it really easy to, take out big groups of these at a time. You'll see that the shock will spread from one to the other. They'll explode. Usually take a couple hits, but they don't do a lot of damage. They will go kamikaze too, so, as they start to explode, they'll come after you. So what I'll do here is take advantage of the Rope Caster Expert skill, which, when the tie down state turns red after he comes back out, you can tie him back down again, which gives me a really good opportunity to take out both of the egg launchers. So we've already got all of the Stingspawn and both of the egg launchers gone at this point. So this is great. One thing too with the rope caster is you have to fully draw the rope caster in order for it to pierce armor plates. So sometimes that means you're going to take a hit because you have to make sure to overdraw the weapon all the way. And once I've got him tied out again, I've got 90 seconds before he'll come out of that tie down state. So this is a good time to heal up if you got damaged in the first round. Check your weapons, make sure you've got your ammo and everything's reloaded. And I'm aiming for that armor plate so that I'm not causing damage, but I'm still able to build up that free state. And he's got a really big armor plate right there on his back leg that I like to aim for. Then I activate my Valor Surge. I use my Bolt Blaster with the Stainburst weapon technique. And even building up free status, I like to use the triple notch weapon technique on the Sun Scourge. Or I think it's just on all hunter bows. The triple notch works really well. That also works well to take down the egg launchers on his sides. So that real high jump that he does quite often, that one's actually fairly easy to dodge, but it can be a little bit tricky. I typically like to slide dodge, so when he does his high jump, when he starts it, that's when I'll start my slide. And then you have to try to time his landing you dodge just right before he lands, typically you'll avoid taking damage when he does that. And then once we've got him tied back down, we go right back into it. We're going to freeze him. I didn't have Valor Surge at that point, so I couldn't do my Valor Surge, but we still switched right over to our Bolt Blaster, aimed for the back, and then again, right back into freezing him again. He's still a little bit frozen, so it's easy to do. Get the Bolt Blaster back out. Reload, try to reload. Usually it'll only take 3 times, maybe 2 or 3 times. You see he's sparking quite a bit. He's pretty heavily damaged at this point. This is ultra hard, so his health is pretty high. I probably could have just finished him off here with, you know, my Shredder Gauntlet or a Sharp Shot Bow. See, that jump is pretty easy to avoid taking damage if you time it right. And at this point, I know it's probably only going to take another 1 or so. Swing around to the back. So I think I figured here it probably wasn't worth even using my Valor Surge, didn't need to. And yeah, it only took 1 shot. So there it is. So you can see that with the right strategy, you can take down the Bile Gut and preserve the sack webbing without really even breaking a sweat. But if you are looking for some different options, or you're having trouble with this strategy, here's a couple of other things that I found also work pretty well. Shock not only works on the Stingspawn, but also works pretty well on the Bile Gut, and limits his ability to jump around and attack. Of course, I like to use the Ancestors Return Shredder Gauntlet, but any shock weapon will work, and once shocked, then you can always swing around the back and inflict damage. If you're not concerned with preserving the sack webbing, or you have easy loot turned on, a good way to start the fight is to line up a big shot right from the beginning and aim for the sack webbing. With this out of the way early, his ability to shoot you with acid or fire will be limited. Although I'd still recommend running in afterward to tie down the machine so you can clear out the Stingspawn and remove the egg launchers. Drill spikes, like from the new legendary spike thrower The Last Argument, are another great tool for triggering knockdowns and limiting the Bile Gut's ability to attack. But when looking to knock down a machine with drill spikes, you have to make sure to aim for the legs, which can be a little bit tricky. And lastly, smoke bombs. If you're having a hard time getting in close and tying down the Bile Gut, smoke bombs work great. You can typically just run right up to them, throw down a smoke bomb, and they'll be confused long enough for you to completely tie them down. And that's it, my master strategy guide for taking down the Bile Gut. If this helped or you like this video, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.